Good evening. This is Monday evening, September 10th, 2018 at 6 p.m. We may be recorded live from the Neil Shapiro Auditorium. Ms. Hames, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Fabiano?
Here.
Mr. Matucci?
Here.
Ms. Powell?
Present.
Ms. Swope? Mr. Vecchia?
Present.
Mr. Perrin?
Here.
Mr. Capabianco?
Here. Ms. Howe, will you please lead us on the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to ask everyone to remain standing for a moment of silence in memory of Mary Kelly, who retired in June 2011 with over 29 years of service. Thank you. Any public comment? Public comment?
Moving on.
All right. Moving on to general information. Ms. Howard, do you have any delegates and visitors?
Not this evening.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the August 20th, 2018 meeting. Do I have a second? Second by Ms. Swope. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. Moving on to financial and business procedures. Payroll warrant SVW 19-4, the amount of $208,000.54. $208,000, $548.40. It's a long day. Motion to approve.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Parent, second by President Vecchia. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Abstain.
Opposed, and one abstention. We have payroll warrant SPW 18-28 in the amount of $153,794.60.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Matucci, seconded by President Vecchia. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, the ayes have it. We also have a budget transfer of the amount of $22,015.36. Any discussion? We have, actually, motion by Mr. Perrin, seconded by President Vecchia. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, the ayes have it. Buildings and grounds,
I'd like to make a motion, we take them all together?
Second.
motion by Mr. Perrin, second by Mr. Matucci. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, the ayes have it. Any subcommittee reports this evening? I don't believe we have any. So moving on to the superintendent's report.
Thank you.
Bang, go through that.
Superintendent's report this week's a tiny bit long. However, I will try to go through it as quickly as I can. Opening day went very well this year. All of our students attended on the first day. Our first day of school, the teachers came in and did a shortened version of professional development. Each teacher met here initially. We had our opening day, made some opening comments. We also did a moment of silence for Mary Kelly, who happened to also be my 5th grade teacher. I had been at her dedication ceremony the week before and was fortunate enough, along with Senator Boncory, to take a great picture of 2 5th graders who my guess is probably may not have been the most well-behaved 5th graders with Mrs. Kelly. So it was a great opportunity. And then to hear of her untimely and unexpected passing was difficult, but also it was nice that she was able to be honored for the pavilion and that she was able to see that and to have her friends and her family, and there were quite a few of us there to honor her. So, yeah, so it was pretty neat. Our enrollment, just to give a little bit of a heads up, we have 2,018 students. At the Gorman Fort Bank School, we have 446 kindergarten first and second graders, and we have 41 preschoolers. At the Cummings School, we have 456 students, middle school 460, and at the high school 608. As of today, we have 5 students who have requested, or 5 families who have requested homeschooling. And we've gone through the homeschool applications, spoken with the principals about the presentation from each parent, the information they provided us with. According to the law, they need to provide us with a copy and an understanding of what they will be teaching each child at home, who will be doing that, and what their plans for assessment are. So we went over those with the principals. We'll be checking in with those families mid-school year to get an update on the students to see how they are progressing, So as of right now, we have 5 students who will be participating in homeschooling. All of our staff this week participated in a civil rights compliance training where they were able to go through a PowerPoint presentation and some discussion on restraint training, on harassment, and a number of other civil rights issues that we would like our staff to be up to date on. I'm happy to report, as of today, we had 98% compliance. We switched over to a Google Doc, so as folks would complete the training, they were able to sign in on sort of an e-doc so that we would be able to keep an accurate record of who had completed that. Oftentimes, we're asked to submit that kind of information to the Department of Ed, whether it's through a coordinated program review or just a compliance check. So it's nice to have that electronically, so it speaks a little bit to our technology progress. We also had staff, when we speak to the safety and security of our schools, we had our staff participate in ALICE training this month, and so during the month of September, it is our plan to have 100% of the staff that's employed by Winthrop Public Schools ALICE trained. ALICE is a second level of lockdown training where there are enhancements made to the actual understanding of a lockdown, and it walks you through the process, gives you an idea of when you should lock down, but it also adds another layer of sort of a fight back if need be, and we'd like to be able to present that to our parents as well. So the teachers, again, participated. It's an online training where they have to, about an hour and 10 minutes of a PowerPoint presentation that's somewhat interactive with a test at the end. And at the end, you take I believe it's about a 15-question test. I took it 2 months ago, so 10 to 15 questions after that PowerPoint presentation. To date, we have trained 89% of our staff, of the 260 people that we're training. And this is only the beginning of the second week of school. So there are a few folks who had some difficulty with their computer. So there were some computer glitches, but teachers, ESPs, custodians, secretaries, what did I leave out? Secretaries, custodians, teachers, ESP, cafeteria staff, and substitutes will all be trained. It's been added to our new teacher training packet and our hire packet as well. So we have a checklist of things that you need to have completed to work here, whether it's being a substitute teacher or a cafeteria worker or a custodian or a teacher. And until you have met every item on that checklist, you can't start. So that's everything from your query to your fingerprints to doing your tax and payroll forms. And so now added to that is the civil rights compliance, as well as the ALICE training. We will be rolling out on September 26th. Chief Delahanty and myself will be rolling out a parent presentation so that parents are aware of what ALICE is. And that information will be going out at the end of this week to the parents so that they can get it on their calendar. We'll be working with elementary school parents first from 6 to 6:45 on the 26th here, and then with our secondary parents from 7 to 7:45. The conversation is a little bit different about ALICE training at each level and what's expected of the teachers at both levels. So we want to make sure that we're mindful with our parents at both levels to give them the information necessary depending upon the age of their students. So Chief Delahanty and I will be doing a small presentation for all parents. So we'll be sending that out via email. We'll probably do a Connect Ed, which everybody knows I save those for super important things like canceling school and transportation issues and really important training issues. So I think this is one that will allow our parents to take a peek at sort of our focus on security. We'll also talk to them a little bit about Social Sentinel, which is just another layer of security that in working with the chief, both the police chief and the fire chief, we've added just one more layer. So to say that you're 100% safe, I don't know that anyone in the Commonwealth is able to do that, but to be able to explain to parents what we're packing in to make sure that we're trying to add a layer of safety at every level. Social Sentinel is a web-based program that sort of trolls other people's social media. So if somebody in this community or a surrounding community were to post something on their own Twitter account or Facebook account that had reference to negativity or threatening language, such as using the word kill or stab, or something really negative, and it would tag it to the school. So if it's in this general area, and there are a handful of people that would get an email that would say that Social Sentinel has trolled something and picked something up that may be a threat to the school. And so the fire chief, police chief, principals, and myself receive a text message so that we can then go on and look at who tweeted what and what they said, and then we're able to communicate with each other if we think it's something that needs to be investigated. We get it all the time. You can set your own, we can set our own alert system to alert us Monday through Friday, to not alert you in the middle of the night. I haven't quite figured out how to do that. So people were talking about the Patriots game last night and using words that you might, use about Goodell or somebody else that you weren't fully fond of, and my phone was going off about, I think it went off 4 times last night, totally unrelated to Winthrop Public Schools, but the language that was used in the tweet somehow connected through Social Sentinel. So you get things that are really not important, but it's enough information that if something should be important, we're able to take a peek at that. And we all know that if it's something beyond our own understanding, that the chief of police is there to be able to lean on for him to dig it a little bit deeper than we can. So those things will be explained to our parents, and certainly the school committee will be invited to that. Transportation, as everyone knows, we are down to a van that we are using to transport our students who live beyond 2 miles. Right now, we are transporting a total of 10 students. We had 23 students who were eligible for transportation. We've had conversation, whether it be by phone or email, with every one of the families that live beyond the 2 miles. And as of today, which was our first day of transport, we transported 10 students. We have 2 kindergartners, 4 first graders, 0 second graders, 0 third graders, 0 fourth graders, 1 fifth grader, and 3 sixth graders. So those students are picked up down at the PSA Hall, for those of you who know the point, across from Holy Rosary Church. And it's in 2 shifts. So the Gorman Fort Bank School with our kindergarten, first, and second graders, that's 1 run. And on that run, there are, at this point, 6 students that get picked up. Each one of the students' parents has come in and had a full meeting with me. We had a group meeting that talked about the bus rules, and there are seat belts on the van, so students have to be buckled in. We have a child with a peanut allergy, so there's no eating or drinking on the vehicle, and we have the signage on there. We have a bus driver and a monitor. And the parents are aware of the rules and regulations of the busing. So it does 2 runs. The second run does the Arthur T. Cummings and the middle school. And they do that same run in the afternoon. Crossing guards is sort of a never-ending story. We have, just as an update, we have advertised on School Spring. We've sent notices to parents. We have spoken to various people at the elementary schools and middle schools, ESPs, cafeteria workers, to see if we can get anyone who's currently in one of those positions who may want a little extra work to take on some of our crossing guard spots. We identified some really key and critical spots, one being the police station. The second critical spot that Eileen Pearson and a whole group of other folks, including folks from Safe Streets, had identified was down at Kennedy Road, the crossing walk that goes between the DPW and the side door, because we do have folks that walk on that left side of the street. Those are critical spots for us. We have 1 crossing guard, and it's difficult to figure out if it's the pay, because it's not terrible. It seems to be the amount of time. So it's an hour and a half in the morning to 2 hours in the morning, same in the afternoon. I know that most folks do not want to stand out in that weather and cross students. However, we have had a number of people in the past who have done the job. So I met with the town manager and talked to him about some thoughts that he may have in the community that he comes from, where there are other ways that you could engage folks to be crossing guards. They used a whole different system, so he and Chief Delahanty and I are going to sit down and talk about how we may be able to get folks to engage in that.
Lisa, how many guards are you looking for?
6,
And what's the pay?
Patty, do you remember? $11 an hour. So it's not terrible, but when you think about what a crossing guard does and what they have to endure, standing outside trying to get traffic to stop with people who don't want to stop, but it's a concern, that we don't have the crossing guards. I've watched at the police station, that four-way crossing. I think people are more willing to stop there because you're stopping in front of a police station and they're always afraid who's maybe coming out of the front door of the police station, are they going to get caught? And because it is a four-way, I think it took me 3 years to get used to stopping there. I don't know how long ago, Ron, they put that in, maybe 5 years ago, but it was never a four-way stop sign until a few years ago, and that was a huge learning curve for a lot of people who are sliding right through that. But I see less and less of that, but that is a major spot that we want to have a crossing guard stationed at. Couple of more things. Residency checks. Residency checks have been hot and heavy, and we have tightened up our enrollment criteria. So how do you enroll in Winthrop Public Schools and what is needed? We've always had guidelines around that. The enforcing of those guidelines has sort of wavered depending upon the time of the year and sort of what the rules were at the moment. And we have come down in the last year very hard to make sure, and it's extremely aggravating for some of our parents who want to come in and just register their kids and get them in school, and we totally understand that. However, it is difficult once a child is in school to then have to remove that child if in fact the families don't live here. Officer Armistead has been great with us, and she has visited many houses to make sure that people are actually residing there. Some of the services we have here in Winthrop Public Schools now is drawing people this way. Students tend to tell on themselves that they don't live here and that they actually come in with an aunt or an uncle, or oftentimes we have some of the folks that we have had to ask to enroll in the town that they live in come here because they have grandparents who are caretakers in the afternoon and in the morning, so parents will drop the kids off in the morning to an aunt or an uncle or a grandparent because they have to get to work. Yet they may not necessarily live in the community, and so the law is very clear. It's where you live, where the child lays their head the majority of the night, which is 5 nights per week, and it cannot be for the sole purpose of going to school. So if your aunt lives in Winthrop, but you really live in Revere, and your aunt takes care of you during the day, you can't then sleep over a few nights a week in Winthrop so that you can establish residency. We've gotten very tight on it because we are concerned about class size. Enrollment for kindergarten, preschool, and 9th grade have been really our biggest enrollments this year, and we have had several people who we did not register. And we didn't register them because they didn't have the proper documentation or they didn't pass the residency check. Residency check is an actual knock on the door, looking at a mailbox to see if you have residency, and then going into the home and asking to see where the child is staying. So if you have a 1-bedroom and you're registering several students, that may be okay because they may actually be living there, but we have the right under the law to double check that to make sure that somebody is actually staying there. So that's just an update on residency. Facilities, fire and police did a walkthrough each building along with the principals and the custodians in August and took note on, we looked at, I believe it's 32 areas of safety according to the national safety standards for school safety and a number of other items, fire safety as well. Both chiefs put together a checklist for us of things that needed to be either upgraded or fixed. A big one was fire extinguishers. However, our fire extinguisher maintenance people were coming the week after the fire and police did their inspection. So we knew that that was going to appear to be a fault for us, but it was already scheduled to be fixed. Mikhail Filippo, who is our facilities manager for the schools, has met with each one of the custodians. They've looked at each list to see what needs to be put together or fixed, whether it's light bulbs, whether it's keys. Some of the items were keys to doors that the police and the fire needed to have put in a box so that they could easily access that in an emergency. Keys to elevators in the event of a lockdown. They want to be able to access that quickly. They looked at all the walkie-talkies, PA systems, telephones, made recommendations about having walkie-talkies for the outside. So if we're in the field or if we're in the playground, to have a walkie-talkie for any teacher who is outside the building, if in fact the PA system did not reach the outside. So it was a huge combination of fire safety, police safety, and then overall school safety. We put together a plan with the facilities manager, a rollout plan to make sure that whether it was batteries, whether it was smoke detector issue, or whether it was inspections of elevators or ordering of walkie-talkies, that we meet again next week to see where we're at in each building with rectifying any of those issues. I will have those for the next Building and Ground Subcommittee meeting so that folks can read through what was found and then where we're at in terms of correcting any of our safety issues that we had. So I thank the fire and police chief for that effort, because it's 4 school buildings, but it's about a 2 to 3 hour job, and then the write-up of that, and then they'll come back and do a check afterwards to make sure that we have met everything we said we were going to meet. Quick update on the playground. We have our playground committee meeting, the Arthur T. Cummings Playground Committee meeting will be on the, I believe it's on the 20th, it is, at 1 o'clock. We left off last year. Mr. Herity had put together a committee of people. I believe it was 1 parent. It was the custodian, the facilities manager, himself, myself, and I believe the special ed PPS director. So we met twice last year, towards the end of the year, looking at going over a whole bunch of stuff, the report that had been out there for a long time, looking at the improvements that we had made, also looking at the capital requests that we had put in that had not moved forward yet because we needed to supply some additional information. We now have some additional information from another vendor who has come out and looked at the playground, and we've also put, as many of you probably saw at the barbecue last week, all new swings to get those swings compliant, switched out a whole bunch of the chains and ordered the covered chains. We still have some work to do with the slide. There was an issue with the slide, having thought that slide was ordered through Parks and Rec from a warranty, and it had not been. We've since learned that the slide that's there, that's locked down for non-use because of a break in the slide, they don't make that slide anymore, so you'd have to have a slide configured for that particular structure. So we're in the process of getting even another opinion, because of the price of that would be very expensive, so we're looking for a retrofit. And then when we get the committee together, I think the bigger question is gonna be, do we now move forward and order that slide, or do we move forward with some additional information for the town in terms of a capital request? Because if you replace the surface of the ground, you may not be able to keep the structure that's there. So if you order a new slide for the structure, you may be wasting money if the structure itself cannot be put back on the surface. So there's still more to do with the playground itself. We are doing our weekly checks of that playground. There's a checklist that started last year, and I believe November, where the custodian of all of our playgrounds on school property goes around that playground, looks for anything that's loose, anything that's damaged, or any change from the park from the week before. And that gets reported to the facilities director and the principal. 2 more things. Miller Field, at the next Building and Grounds Committee, we will be asking to talk a little bit about the Miller Field rentals again, to sort of revisit that. And this past Saturday, we had a rental with Winthrop Youth Football. It was great. The students all played there. So you saw all our young athletes out there, but it was pretty cool that Coach Cadigan sent the high school boys out there to watch all of the younger youth football players and the youth football cheerleaders. And they did a great job. We had some difficulty with oversight, the number of people that we had on the field, overseeing the large amount of people. I don't know that we expected the crowd to be as big as it was. So we had some management concerns that we have to work on our level, and we definitely will do that. And that was in terms of who could come on the field, who couldn't come on the field, one person manning the gate couldn't also then watch people bringing food because there was a concession stand that is really the youth football's only fundraiser. It's the only way they bring revenue in that I'm aware of. So that was very important to them that they were able to sell items. And I think our folks enjoyed buying the items, the kids did. But we do need to refocus, and the Millerfield, the athletic director and field administrator are gonna get back together and talk about that, just to make sure that we're staying on top of the field in terms of keeping it the nice field that it is and not letting anything go by the wayside, and especially in terms of the cleanliness of the field, and making sure that we're on top of, we have enclosed where the field house is gonna be, which is great. I happen to see about 7 or 8 people trip over the big structures that are holding the enclosure up, which is just a hazard of having something enclosed on a field like that. So we'll talk a little bit about making sure our folks are mindful of that when they come on the field. Do we need to put some students there just to say, please be careful because the structure is sticking out. And as of right now, for kids only, last item, for kids only, I was able to meet with the director of Debbie Nealon of Kids Only. They have utilized space at the Gorman Fort Bank School for after-school programming from approximately 2 o'clock, 2:30 in the afternoon till 6 o'clock at night. For the past several years, they use a couple of spaces that we have. This year, they asked for an additional space for academic time for some of their students. They're feeling like the use of the multipurpose room in the cafeteria was not enough space for them. Their focus this year is the social emotional well-being of kids, so they want to be able to have some space for some direct one-on-one academic work, but also some, not necessarily counseling, but some group work, maybe some small group student work around social emotional well-being, so they needed to separate the students. So we had identified a classroom for that. They have just sent us the rough draft of the MOU. Which Paul Hodnett had, the school's attorney, had ahead of time. He has reviewed that. We have made some changes in it. They pay us a fee for being here. That fee is typically used for custodial overtime because between the hours of 2 and 6, we typically bring on more people because our custodians are taking care of our general school building business during that time. And we are down 1 custodian from where we were, I believe, 3 years ago. So they've already taken on more to begin with, so having that custodial overtime, somebody really dedicated to For Kids Only, and the coverage of that space, which is quite a bit of work because of the bathrooms and the number of students that they actually service. So we are looking to have that same agreement, just adding on a little bit of additional space, and we were actually taking some time away from the cafeteria space. And that would be it on my report. Yes. I think you get someone down there.
So residency checks still ongoing?
Residency checks are every day. Anytime a student either enters a school district, comes in and wants to register, or if at any time we are made aware of the fact that somebody may not live here, we have the right to inspect at any time if a student is suspected of not living here. Like I said, oftentimes students sort of tell on themselves. The littler ones, we do not have school choice, and therefore, we do have to stay on top of it. And so the principals they're probably sick of me hearing me say it, but there are times when, you really do have to stay on top of it, especially given our class size.
Personnel?
Personnel. Just gotta jump to my other folder. So we have a retirement, and that would be Mary McGrail. Mary is writing to let us know that she's an ESP at the Gorman Fort Banks, that she will be retiring in November. Mary has given us a great deal of time here as an ESP, and has done a wonderful job with our students. She's a total asset. She will be very, very much missed, I am sure, by the staff at the Gorman Fort Banks. We have some, I think that's it, right, Penny? And then postings. I just have to get just give me 1 sec. Postings, we have a recess monitor posting. We also have the crossing guard posting, so we're gonna keep those crossing guard postings up. It's important that we keep pushing them so that people will continue to see them. And again, I'll be working with the town manager to see if he has any additional ideas for in-town folks. We looked at the tax program for some of our seniors. There's a lot involved with the crossing guards, just so folks know. There's a training that's involved. It's not the easiest job in the world. It's actually somewhat dangerous, especially nowadays where folks are on their cell phones and texting and not paying attention to crosswalks. So we do a training. We teach them how not to get involved with any sort of back and forth with parents, because that never ends well. And the police department is super supportive of us just taking license plate numbers and registering complaints of our own.
And then the therapeutic
Correct. And then we also have an opening right now for a teacher in the therapeutic classroom at the middle school. We currently have a long-term sub-candidate for that position, but we're still accepting applications, and I believe that that is it. Yes, and no leave of absence at this time.
All right, under new business, we've reached an agreement with the nurses in the ESP Collective Bargaining Committee. So I'd like to ask my colleagues to sign the contract and then motion to approve the agreement. So
Motion to approve the agreement with the ESP.
motion by Ms. Powell, second by Ms. Swope. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. Mr. Martucci abstains. One abstention. Do we have a motion to approve the nurses' collective bargaining agreement?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Perrin,
Second.
seconded by President Vecchia. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? No abstentions. The motion passes.
The next is a vote on homeschool.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve the homeschool application.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Martucci, seconded by President Vecchia. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Yeah, I'm in favor. I just said any opposed. Any abstentions? The ayes have it. Ms. Howard, any update on the strategic plan?
Yes, so update on the strategic plan. I would like to provide the school committee with a copy of the vision, the new vision, and the new mission, as well as the objectives and the first round of initiatives that have been developed by the leadership team. This is work that has been going on for about a year in terms of my walkthrough and my entrance as a superintendent and collection of data, and then sharing that data with the leadership team beginning in April of last year. And then from that meeting forward, straight through the summer, working with the leadership team to identify 3 objectives that we strongly believe the school district needs to focus on over the next 3 school years. And with that intense focus will come initiatives that will be identified to the school and will help guide the school improvement plans. Right now, we have school improvement plans, and so those were not ignored, and those school improvement plans that had been written for this school year will still be in place. Our goal is to see where those school improvement plans fit with the initiatives that we have come up with for this school year, and then moving forward, school improvement plans should begin with looking at the school's 3 initiatives. It requires a vote of the school committee, so I wanted to make sure I was just letting you know that it was coming, and we will be providing you with a copy of the mission, the vision, and if I could read the mission and the vision to you, and I will read the objectives. However, we'll provide you, prior to the next school committee meeting, you will be provided with this in your packet so that you'll be able to look at it ahead of time and then be able to ask questions. We'll present this to you at the next meeting. So although my glasses just broke because I sat on them in my car, I will read to you the vision. And again, this is a collective, these are collective statements, a collective mission, a collective vision, and collective objectives that the leadership team has spent an inordinate amount of time working together. And I have to say, I think the number one thing that came out of this was folks sort of let their, I guess their professional vulnerability show over the amount of time that we've worked together. There were some fights, there were some arguments, and then there were some really good conversations around what do we want the Winthrop Public Schools to look like? What are our strengths? What are our areas of needed improvement? And where do we go from here? And it sounds like a simple task, but when you put together administrators of students that are in preschool through high school, very different mindsets of people. But as a school district, if we don't have a very clear set of core values that oversee this entire school district, meaning these are the 5 things that we truly believe in. We can edit them and adapt them in our individual buildings. What we can't do is conflict with them. So you can have a whole group of additional core values at, say, the Gorman Fort Bank School. What you can't do is collide with the core values of the district as a whole. And our thought process is, if we have one vision, one mission, and one set of objectives, that we'll clearly focus ourselves on making progress and have action steps that will be, you'll be able to hold us accountable. What have you done when you speak about school safety? What did you say you were going to do in September of 2018-19? Did you do it, and what was the outcome? So our goal is, with our action steps, that you will be able, as a school committee, to ask those questions and see that progress. So for the vision the team came up with, and again, this will be for you to look at for the next meeting and to vote on. The Winthrop Public Schools graduates are confident, self-directed, lifelong learners who are productive contributors to the diverse global community. And then as a mission, the Winthrop Public Schools will provide progressive learning experiences through a rich program of studies and high-quality instruction that educate, develop, and support all students to reach their full potential and appreciate the diversity in our world as conscientious members of society. And in terms of objectives, which are wide-ranging items that then come with initiatives that will get you to each one of these objectives. Objective number 1 was to provide a high-quality, rigorous instruction and curriculum alignment K-12. Objective number 2, to teach all students in a safe and welcoming environment. And objective number 3, professional culture and community engagement. So they're, again, overarching topics that we then need to show what initiatives we're going to put in place to achieve those, and then provide the community, the parents, and the school committee with the steps, action steps that we plan to get to the end goal, which would be to achieve our initiative. The core values that the district came up, that the leadership team came up with, and we looked at the core values in every single building, as well as ran through many exercises of what are the core values individually to the principals. Did some touchy-feely stuff that the principals were not used to doing, but again, that professional vulnerability is what's sort of building us as a team. So the core values just happen to spell out the word pride, and it's the P stands for personal success, the R stands for respect, the I stands for integrity, the D stands for dedication, and the E stands for excellence. And our core values are reflective of what we expect of not just our students, but our teaching staff, our community members, and our families. So more to come on this. And I would ask that next committee meeting that we have, that you ask questions about every bit of this. It was a great deal of work. Our principals are very proud of it, and they keep asking me, when are we going to be able to, roll this out? And we are rolling it out. We have provided it to our teachers already so that they have an understanding of where the committee may be allowing us to go in terms of the vision and the mission. I remember working for Joan Conley, who was a former superintendent here, I don't know how many years ago, probably 15. And at that time, if you were to ask any member of the Winthrop Public Schools, including students, what are the core values of the Winthrop Public Schools, people could routinely sort of spit those out. My goal would be not only to be able to recite them, but to also be able to show what does that look like at the high school? What does that look like at the middle school? What does respect look like at the elementary level versus the high school? What does it look like for a teacher? Because the teachers have to be accountable. Because if we don't begin from the top and show what does respect look like from the superintendent of schools? What does excellence look like for the superintendent, for the principals, for the teachers, for the students, for the parents? So that's the direction that we're going, and I'll be providing that to you for the next school committee meeting to look at.
So when we look at what you gave us last week in terms of the school, in terms of those individual plans, and you said they're going to be modified, they're going to be modified in light of what this overall plan is. But
So-
this year, we're going to keep those.
Mm-hmm. So the school improvement plans that were done by many folks within each individual building are very, very valuable, and they speak to a lot of good work that's gone into figuring out what does each individual building look like. What we'll be asking of, and so we don't want to change those at all. What we're going to ask, what we're going to ask for is to now begin to see how do those tie into this, and as we build school improvement plans for 1920, they should be built from this document. So what is the mission of the school, what is the vision, and now how does that tie into the school improvement plan? Right now, we're sort of backwards because we haven't had, the end result of this is the district's strategic plan. We haven't had a district-wide strategic plan in Winthrop for a while. We've done a lot of great things individually. However, as a whole, as one school district, what do we believe in? What is our mission? What is our vision? And how are we getting there? So it's pretty exciting if you're into this stuff, like I am.
All right,
And that would be it on that.
any additional new business? All right, moving on to unfinished business, solar panels. In my meeting with Mr. Faison, I did have a conversation with him regarding the proposal we received, and he told me he was going to review it and then update us with that at an upcoming meeting. So, yes, Mr. Perry.
Can we make sure that they look at what the insurance policy covers, to make sure it covers the roof, should we decide to go that way? How much that is? If we have to provide the insurance, I saw some things that were kind of conflicting. There's also a liquidated damage clause that doesn't seem to go anywhere as far as if the provider does not hit its mark for the dates that they're supposed to be online.
Okay, absolutely. President Beck, did you have a comment?
Yeah, the town manager, I spoke to him today about this contract. He's reviewed it.
Okay.
He's working with KP to kind of put the finishing touches on it. There were two areas of concern.
Perfect.
One was after the term of the contract, the 20-year term, what happens to the equipment, and the other one was the insurance.
I think on that one, on the amount of time, it kind of says that we can either have the option of negotiating to buy them out at that time, or they'll remove the equipment, but it's kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
I kind of agree, and
You wanna get
it's
it
good to think
clarified.
we're getting another set of
He
eyes on it.
expects to have it for the next council meeting, the next school committee meeting.
Okay, perfect. All right. Any public comment? Hi. Do you mind standing up so we can hear you? Sorry.
I'm here because, as most of you probably already know, I'm truly concerned about the class sizes at the kindergarten level particularly. I understand we have very large class sizes in other grades, third grade as well. I'm a parent of a third grader, a kindergartner, and I have a 3-year-old, so I'm in this for the long haul, and I really want to see that 7th kindergarten teacher restored because the numbers are just way too high. I challenge any of you to take care of 26 kids by yourself. And Mr. Becky, especially you as the town council president. Like, I know you've got grandkids in here. You've done this kindergarten thing. It's important. They have to learn how to read. Like, that's not something we can mess around with. Because if we're worried about 10 test scores down the road, we got to start now. They need to be reading by the time they're moving into first grade and able to be prepared for third grade where they start taking tests. So we need to figure it out. Thank you.
Any additional public comment?
I'm just
Yep.
curious, sorry, just to touch on what she was saying about them needing to read. Do they need to be able to read to move into first grade?
No.
I didn't think so. Last year, my nephew was in first grade, and he had 5 or 6 kids in his class that could not read at all, and it was slowing him down tremendously throughout the time that he was in that classroom. My sister actually pulled her students out because of the lack of attention that her kids were receiving when they were doing above what the teachers were teaching those kids. They had to leave the school district. I have a girl who's 4.5, she'll be in kindergarten next year, and I would hate to see all the floundering keep continuing for all these kids because they're hungry to do things, and we can't rely on preschool. Kindergarten shouldn't be preschool.
So just to clarify the answer to that question when I said no, it is not a prerequisite to be able to read to move on from kindergarten to first grade in public school. I didn't mean anything other than just a very literal answer to that question. Do we want our children to be able to read at the earliest time? Absolutely, but it is not a prerequisite for them to be able to do that.
Do you think that it's a lack of having resources for all of those kids, that they're getting kind of left in the wayside because there are 26 26 other kids in their class?
You know, it's unfortunately,
No, you know the answer,
yeah,
it's a
Right.
guesstimate.
Unfortunately, Dina, because it's this very strict open meeting law and public comment, it's not really go back and forth. But I could definitely, and we do appreciate your comments, and we really hear what you're saying, and we, especially Shannon, and we want to take what you're saying. And I could talk to my colleagues about putting this on the agenda at a future meeting, but we can't take a vote on it right now in public or anything like that, and I'll be happy to talk with you in private about it, and, you know, especially if my colleagues agree, and we could put it on the agenda at next meeting. But we can't have, you know, back and forth during a meeting, just because, you know, there's a very strict open meeting law.
And it's a great question, Ms. Pearson, that she, I'm sure, would answer, even if you just called her.
Who is Ms. Pearson?
She's the principal of the Gorman Fort Banks. Yeah. So that's a
Ma'am,
great question.
did
for
you
her.
have a
She'd be
comment?
happy to answer.
I came here, my name is Natalia Rapunova. I came here for a similar reason. My child just started kindergarten and I found out that the class is 26 kids, which was shocking to me at first. And I know it's above the state limit, so I don't know how, if there was a waiver, or I would be interested to learn that part as well. But I think the class sizes of this size are challenging for both kids who are more advanced and who are less advanced. Both of them need different type of attention, and just having 2 teachers for 26 kids, I'm not sure they're getting the amount of attention that they need. So kids who are more advanced, they are ready to read and write and everything, they would be bored, which will eventually lead to them getting into troubles, being troublemakers. Kids who are struggling at first, they need more attention and a little bit portion of the first place. So the teachers cannot give them that necessary push. They will be struggling academically. So I am concerned about both sides, and average kids are will be challenged by the same conditions.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We definitely hear what you're saying. We're empathetic to what you're saying. We wish we could have as much as we could. In Winthrop, we do have full free-day kindergarten. Unlike other towns, there are only 290 towns in the state that have free full-day kindergarten. Towns such as Andover and Wayland have, you know, $6,000 a year tuition. We have free full day. So, but we do hear what you're saying, and in discussion with my colleagues, if that's something we'd like to take a look at, to lower in class sizes and put that on the agenda at a future meeting, and maybe invite Ms. Pearson, that's definitely something we could look at.
And just for clarity, overall clarity, I am meeting with Ms. Pearson tomorrow, which is a pre-arranged meeting to talk about class size for the committee's understanding. This is something that we've talked about pretty much every day since June. As we began to look at the numbers starting to rise, it was an unusual rise in numbers the last week of June to the last week of August, and it continues. And certainly, class size is something that does not get by a principal at all. So there are, and I think I spoke with one of the parents via email, that it is something that we are discussing and looking at options and ways that we may be able to alleviate any of the stress that's happening, or really get a real clear picture of the number of students that are in the class. We know the total numbers, how long those children are in the class during the day, how many staff members are in. Right now, the ratio of each classroom, there are 26 kids in each classroom. There is a teacher and a full-time paraprofessional. Most of the classrooms, not all, have a bathroom within the classroom. I know that seems minor, but when you're 5, it's not minor, because access to the bathroom, quick access is very important, and a teacher having to leave the physical classroom. If they do have to leave the physical classroom, there is, we this year took 2 of the staff bathrooms, one of the staff bathrooms on the first floor that was designated just for staff. That is now a student-only kindergarten, and actually the preschool as well, if need be, uses that. We put adaptive equipment in that bathroom this summer. So adaptive equipment, meaning the height of the toilets when you're 5, is a super important issue. So we put some steps in there. We had the physical therapist come and measure the the bathroom itself, measure the toilet, and go through TheraPro magazine to pick an arrangement that would meet the needs of our students for not only washing their hands at the sink, but also for safe use of that bathroom to make sure it was accessible for our students. So we will be meeting tomorrow for further discussion, and I would imagine Ms. Pearson will be communicating with the kindergarten parents, given the noted concern from tonight, as well as a few telephone calls that I did receive today.
Any public relations, starting with Ms. Swope?
This Friday night, we got a big night down at Miller Field. Boys soccer at 4 o'clock, and then the football game at 7. So it should be an exciting night down there.
I want to give a general shout out to our parent organizations at all the levels of the schools and really encourage our parents to get involved in those. Now is when they're having signups. This is a great time to meet other parents and get involved and be able to support our schools.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion. Second.
By Mr. Matucci, seconded by Ms. Swope. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Guys have it.